Hi dear friends, welcome in this new video from the Dowland Healthcare initiative. This video is a little bit like a declaration of my enthusiasm for taiji chuan, and I think if you know me already for a while, you understand that I am a little bit of a fan of China's pre-modern ideas on health and disease, but also on the way how to do exercise and the hidden complexities of Chinese language in translation. A lot of things get lost in translation and misunderstandings, and also in the modernization process of the simplification of language, as well as the integration with Western science, is going at the expense of quite a lot of values. I study Qigong, yoga, meditation, Tai Chi Chuan and stuff for about 47 years now, so that is almost close to 50 years. That's a long time. And I've gone through all kind of stages of understanding and of development of my practice. I had some good teachers and some teachers which maybe are smart, and some teachers easily spoken, just bad. They didn't really understand very much. They had an interesting form or anything like that, but not enough to motivate to feel like, I'm going to grow forward, but more like I'm growing more into sort of a westernized system. This is something that was made clear to me by my teacher Liu, and I have held up to that from the beginning, because westernization is not per se bad, but this is not why I'm interested in Chinese medicine. I'm interested in Chinese medicine because of what is Chinese about it. If I wanted to study Western medicine, I would have gone to Western Medicine University. I can learn that better that way than on the Chinese Medicine University, where I learned basically the same things. Don't take me wrong, I do think modernization did bring a lot of good things to East Asia. It also brought a few bad things, of course, so it's not all good. Just like modernization in the West brought both good things and bad things. I have usually a very relativistic and neutral perspective on these kind of things. I don't try to make a judgment about what is good or what is bad. Very often things depend on the quality of human beings and their morality, and on the way how they dedicate themselves to making people better, or that they just don't care. One of the things I came across in China many times is that modern Chinese people, they are being educated in this atheist, communist, materialist reality, where the past or the philosophy of Confucius, Lao Tzu, and all the other thinkers from the past, even Chinese medicine, is sanitized through a filter of modernization of language, of simplification of the characters because of westernization of science, and the re-engineering of words and actions. For instance, in Kung Fu and in Qigong, Qigong was a completely 20th century invention, and Tai Chi Chuan as a reinvention more towards dance and gymnastics. But today I do want to talk a little bit about Tai Chi Chuan, and that in relationship to body mechanics in both Tai Chi Chuan and in Western sports exercise. Tai Chi Chuan, as you know, means polarization and not great whatever kind of things, ultimate or something like this. There was a commentary on the concept of Tai Chi in the Ming Dynasty, and it is not necessarily accurate for the translation of Tai Chi. It is basically bigger pole, and that is just another word for polarization. This is in the most simplified and complex way to explain this. From perspective of Chinese medicine ideas, that means that because of the build-up of the interaction between yin and yang and the way how the body mechanics works, that at a certain point you get an accumulation of force and an explosion of force through which things happen. This is called the Fa Jing. This Fa Jing in itself, the purpose of Tai Chi Chuan training. So the learning gear of Tai Chi Chuan has to lead to the development of Fa Jing at a certain point. But you have to go through a step-by-step process, because when you are born, you are born with a set of qualities, and then you are unlearning them because of the frustrations of life, and then in the Tai Chi Chuan process you have to go back to your origin. You have to learn these baby qualities again, and as a result of that you have to grow into a mature person, which is the you, not in default position but in position where you should actually be. You see that happening in little children at the moment when children are born, and I'm very happy I have little children because of that, because I saw it happening straight in front of my face. And I gave a particular kind of baby massage to prevent it, but with one I could prevent it, the other one I could only half prevent it. But it would have been much worse if I wouldn't have given them this specific Taoist baby massage. Because you see happening from day to day how they gradually stiffen up because of all the frustrations of life, like hunger, pain, growth pain, and so on and so on. They are continuously being drugged by their bodies, and as a result of that they become stiffer and stiffer. So although I'm now already halfway of the time more or less of what I plan to make this session about, I want to point out that I do not want to give a historical story today, but I have to talk about some historical things to make you understand some things that are happening in modern movement techniques in relationship to mindfulness and exercise, and also what happens in the gym, to understand the difference with taiji chuan. Partly because you're a smoker, partly because your back is a bit round, and your vertebrae is also that they are a little too tight. When we talk about taiji chuan, we talk basically about a theory of embodiment, and an embodiment that is different from what people do normally in the West. When we talk about taiji embodiment, we talk about something that is based on the ease of movement that you see very often in animals in nature, and not on the kind of work that Westerners usually do. You see really people in modern sports, you see people really work very hard, get really exhausted, get into this adrenaline rush, and completely get into a frenzy to be able to achieve something. So they're really forcing their way through their bodies, and they're using their body as a slave, and that form of embodiment that you then get is basically that one of a worker, like, drone. So the mind is using the body as a drone, and it sees itself as something different. While in Taoist theory, the body and the mind, they could be different, but they aren't. One of the things that you see happening in the modernization process is that our modern science it borrows things from other cultures, like you see happening in chemical medicine, where they take all kind of herbs from different cultures all over the world, and then they reinvent them as a chemical, and they say like, look, we created a new medicine. Well, in fact, this was a medicine already used in a little bit different context, but maybe for the same problems in another culture, and it is basically cultural theft at that moment by not mentioning the original source that is saying on that, like aspirin being stolen from the Native Americans. But you see the same thing also happening in dry needling being opposed towards hollow needling with injectables and stuff like this. Well, in fact, it is just theft from the peasant acupuncture that was used in the countryside of China and Mongolia, where pain spots were being sought for, and every time when a rather crude needle was being put into somebody's body, then at that moment somebody would say like, chill, meaning this is it, this is the point, yeah, you got the right point. One of the Western names that we now give to it is trigger point acupuncture. You understand where the name comes from. In this video, by the way, you see me perform a form of taiji chuan, 13 moves from the Wudang Xuanwu Pai. There's many different kind of forms. I've learned several ones. This is my favorite. I'm currently teaching this in my online classes, and this is the way how I perform it for myself at this point, at this moment anyway, in this session, which is different from the class because the students cannot do this kind of thing yet without the proper preparation, and in online classes you can only go so far, and I hope that if I can continue teaching these classes, then gradually we will get to the point where these kind of things can be done by everybody. So what I actually want to do is I want to talk a little bit about the learning process and the body mechanics that are at the bottom of this thing. Western exercise is based on the idea of a mechanical leverage theory, and it means that people are using the bones and the muscles as a fixed fulcrum part and a leverage part, where the bones are being leveraged by the muscles and the work that is being done there through the fulcrum. This mechanism is being used in all kind of ways in our daily life without ever thinking about it. Like when you are opening up a beer bottle with a how do you call this kind of thing, and or when you are opening the door with hinges, or when you use a wrench to break open the door when you're burgling into somebody's house. Both the fulcrum and the leverage make it possible to enlarge your strength, and therefore using more force than you actually have for performing a particular kind of action. And all our exercises are based on enhancing the strength that we have to make sure that we can do something, and we can shine like a knight in whatever kind of armor to look like we really understand this thing and we got it. Then I want to point out as a sidetrack, I don't know if you know about Elsa Gindler. She lived from 1885 to 1961, and she is one of the root inventors of modern gymnastics, and she added a component of attentiveness to it. You can basically say that what she created was the whole system of modern exercise, like in modern yoga and so on, by adding an aspect of mindfulness to it. You have, like what in the American Army is being used, this aspect of autogenic training, which also comes from there, where you go bit by bit through all your body parts and relaxing or tensing or something like this to create a particular kind of exercise of your quality of your body. But and that is also how our sports works. But she did that in the form of attentiveness, and she said that attentiveness should be both in your exercise and in your daily life, which is a great thought. I think Confucianism and Taoism can completely agree with that kind of thought. All your actions should be conscionable, and it should be attentive, and you should actually really understand what you're doing by paying attention and maximizing your awareness of what you're doing. This is part of the ritualization process that you also very often hear me talk about in different kind of sessions. She also suggested a method of deep breathing, which is still used by a lot of people, even by Wim Hof. Is using this very popular nowadays to get all kind of things done, but it is used in bodybuilding, in ballet, and all kind of other things to enhance the quality of a movement by creating more burn and therefore more strength on the short term. This is battlefield mechanics. That means that basically the body is being asked to overdo particular kind of things to get a particular kind of achievement, and you see that in the result. Top sports people, usually after they retire, they very quickly fall apart. The Indian army and also the Chinese army, they have modernized Qigong, Tai Chi Chuan, yoga and so on exactly the same basis, being attentive, doing strength exercise, enhance your breathing, synchronize breathing and movement so that you get that process going. I don't know if you remember Osho, he emphasized that by being attentive in your daily life. It was basically Kindler's thoughts, and some of her followers like Charlotte Selver, who emphasized the psychotherapeutic aspects of being attentive in your daily activities. That is mindfulness, yes. And also there is of course the breath work with people like Carol Spratz, who worked in America, and they both I think worked in America, I'm not exactly sure, but anyway they worked on that. The disadvantage of these training methods is that you can enhance particular kind of qualities, but there is no actual growth, so you're just repeating the same thing in a better way. So you're fine-tuning, you're making yourself stronger, muscles bigger, and so on and so forth. The Taoist way, on the other hand, they use this idea of Lao Tzu, that basically your body mechanics is based on the use of an axle and a hub, and a wheel, of course, so move forward. And all your movements are like wheel rotations, and as a result of that, the amount of strength that you have to use to actually produce something is much smaller. It sounds a little bit like leverage, but leverage is based on the idea that you use movement to swing out a particular kind of movement. And that is the way that also nowadays is being used by Indian space agencies to bring their missiles to the moon and stuff like this, by using the gravity of the earth to get further with their moves. There are other things that is very different in Tai Chi Chuan than from modern body mechanics perspective. Namely, Western mechanics is based on the idea of a fixed fulcrum, while the Taoist system is based on a loose fulcrum, you can say, that is the hub, of course. And also the Western system uses the muscles as hanging on the bones, while the Chinese system, the Taoist system anyway, uses the system of hanging the bones in the muscles. As a result of that, you can see that your body mechanics are gradually going to change, and you're going to move gradually from just simple leverage techniques into a sort of spring technique, and that spring technique actually creates the Fa Jing, and it is a step-by-step process, as I said. But there's other levels of growth that our body can do, for instance by integration in nature and natural processes and so on. Because I don't know if you noticed in the video, but at the end of the video, when I'm closing the form, the light changes. That is not a special effect that I added to it. That is really happening at that moment. And I see that cameras very often they react on that, and they notice that very simply. So this is why I'm so enthusiastic in my declaration about Tai Chi Chuan.
小城里岁月流过去，清澈的永
you really like this video. I think it is a very nice theme. It is very helpful, I think, to understand Tai Chi Chuan in the way how I teach it anyway, and how my teachers also appreciated how I did that, because some of the teachers that I have, like Shifu Yao Xuan De, my great teacher, but also Wang Guangde, the former abbot of the Wudang Mountains, they appreciated these kind of things very much. In my teacher Yao Xuan De, you can see in the way of how he does calligraphy and how he does his movement in Tai Chi Chuan. It is very much like, you know, what I'm talking about. When Wang Guangde, when I saw him move, practicing his Tai Chi Chuan, it was like a dead tree moving. So somewhere this power came from somewhere, and it changes the light in the environment. And I'm very happy to see that in my own videos happening, because this is also what I discovered in him. And this is one of the essential aspects of the whole Zhenwu religion, namely developing this kind of quality where you transcend your life into this non-death, which is amazing. So if you feel like join us on the Patreon, or do a course in the online classes. Come practice with us in our evening classes, but you can also, of course, try to become a professional and get into our Hell Builder program, or in our Bachelor Master program, in our SEM card thing. So just follow the links on the YouTube movie and you will get there. Thank you, and I appreciate you watching to the end.